I stared at the document in front of me, feeling a wave of disbelief. This wasn't the prenup Rachel and I had agreed on. This was something else entirely. She'd gone behind my back and tried to sneak in changes that would entitle her to half of everything I'd worked for, my company, my investments, all of it. She didn't even have the decency to tell me. When we first discussed the prenup, I was open about it with her. I had built a tech company from the ground up, putting in 10 years of sleepless nights, missed holidays, and a lifetime's worth of stress. I'd made it clear that I wasn't comfortable with the idea of risking all of that, no matter who I married. Rachel had agreed, or at least she pretended to. She'd said she understood, that she respected how hard I'd worked. Apparently, that respect didn't go very deep. I called her to my place that night, wanted to give her a chance to explain before I made any decisions. The second she walked in, I could tell she knew what was coming. "Rachel," I said, holding up the papers. "Want to tell me what's going on here?" She rolled her eyes, letting out an annoyed sigh. "What are you talking about, Ethan?" "This," I said, waving the document. "You tried to change the prenup behind my back. You added clauses that would give you half my company, lifetime alimony, and access to my investments, even if we divorce after a few years. This wasn't our agreement." She shrugged, barely even looking at me. "You're being dramatic. It's just some extra protection for me. I thought you'd be fine with it." "Fine with it?" I almost laughed. "Rachel, this isn't what we agreed on. We had an understanding. And what? You thought I'd be okay with being left with nothing if things went wrong?" she said, crossing her arms. "Ethan, you've got everything in your name. I deserve something too. I thought you loved me." This wasn't about love, and she knew it. I had been more than fair with her, even generous. The original prenup was clear. If we got divorced, she'd walk away with a sizable settlement, more than enough to ensure her comfort. But apparently, that wasn't enough for her. "You deserve something?" I repeated, incredulous. "Rachel, we agreed to a fair split. I've taken care of you for the last year, bought you anything you've wanted, set up an account just for you. And now you're going behind my back, changing legal documents without telling me? Do you have any idea what kind of betrayal this is?" "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You act like I've committed some crime. I just want security, Ethan. You can't blame me for wanting that. I've sacrificed a lot for you too, you know?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sacrificed? What exactly have you sacrificed?" She let out a sigh, clearly annoyed. "I quit my job to support you, to travel with you to all your business meetings. I put my life on hold for us, for this relationship. You owe me something for that." "Your job?" I said, struggling to keep my voice calm. "Rachel, you quit a part-time retail job because you didn't feel like working. Let's not pretend you gave up a career for me. And you were more than happy to come on those trips, to stay in 5-star hotels, dine at Michelin-star restaurants. All on my dime." She bristled, her expression hardening. "So that's it, huh? You just want to rub it in my face that you're the one with the money. I thought you were different, Ethan. I thought you actually cared about me." I felt a cold wave of anger rise up inside me. "I do care about you, or at least I did. But this isn't about money, Rachel. This is about trust. You went behind my back and tried to change a legal document, thinking I wouldn't notice. That's manipulation. How am I supposed to marry someone I can't even trust?" Rachel folded her arms, her face defiant. "Maybe you're the one who's being manipulative, holding money over my head to control me. I don't want to have to beg for scraps if things don't work out. If you loved me, you'd understand." I shook my head. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You would have talked to me instead of pulling a stunt like this." For a long moment, we just stared at each other. I could see her struggling, weighing her options. Then her expression shifted, becoming colder. "Fine," she said, her voice flat. "If you want to break off the engagement, go ahead. But I'm keeping the ring, and I'll stay in the apartment until I'm ready to leave." "You owe me that much." I couldn't believe her audacity. "You're not keeping anything, Rachel. That ring was a promise, and you broke it. As for the apartment, I paid for it. You're moving out?" Her face twisted in anger. "You're unbelievable. After everything I've done for you, you're just kicking me out like some stranger? This is how you repay me?" I stood my ground. "Yes, because you've shown me exactly where I stand with you. You didn't care about our agreement, our trust. You just wanted security. Well, you're not getting it from me." Rachel stormed out that night. But that was only the beginning. Over the next few days, she launched a campaign to make me regret calling off the engagement. She went straight to my family, calling my parents and siblings, painting herself as the victim. She told them I was cheap and selfish, refusing to give her the support she deserved. I started getting calls from my sister and mother, asking why I was treating Rachel so unfairly. "Ethan, why are you putting her through this?" my mom asked, clearly upset. "Rachel was just looking out for her future. She's been so good to you." I could feel my frustration boiling over. "Mom, Rachel tried to change our prenup without telling me. She wanted half my company, my investments, everything. She didn't ask, she just did it behind my back. This isn't about love or support. This is about her trying to get a payday." After a long silence, my mom finally said, "I didn't know that. She made it sound like you were abandoning her for no reason." "Yeah, that's the version she's telling everyone," I replied. "I get that it sounds harsh, but she broke my trust. I can't marry someone who would go behind my back like that." My family eventually understood, but Rachel didn't stop there. She started using the credit card I'd given her for emergencies, maxing it out on designer clothes, luxury skincare, even a mini vacation. I checked my statements and nearly choked when I saw the total. She'd spent thousands in a matter of days. I immediately called her. "Rachel, I know what you're doing. You're using the card like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. This stops now." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, so now I'm not even allowed to use the card? You know what, Ethan? You owe me. After all the time I invested in you, I deserve something. I'm just taking what I'm entitled to." "Entitled?" I said, stunned. "You don't have a right to any of this, Rachel. This card was for emergencies, not your shopping spree." "Well, maybe you should have been clearer about that," she said smugly. "What are you going to do about it?" What I did was immediately cancel the card. I took her off every shared account, canceled any joint bills, and informed her that she had 1 week to move out of the apartment. I made it clear that if she tried any more tricks, I'd take legal action. But she didn't make it easy. She refused to pack up her things, insisting she needed time to find a place. Then, she started calling friends and family, claiming I was evicting her and leaving her homeless out of pure spite. A few days later, she called me, her voice sweet but strained. "Ethan, can we work something out? I don't think this is worth ending everything over." I almost felt sorry for her, but I knew better. "Rachel, there's nothing to work out. You tried to manipulate me, you lied to my family, and you maxed out a credit card because you thought you could get away with it. I'm done." The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes, but I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into changing my mind. Finally, she let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine, but don't think you won't regret this." She was gone a few days later. I got my apartment keys back, took the engagement ring, and slowly started to feel the weight lifting. It hurt, sure, Rachel had been a big part of my life, and breaking it off was painful. But as the weeks went by, I started seeing things clearly. I saw how entitled she'd been, how willing she was to manipulate people to get her way. She'd even tried to play me, thinking I wouldn't notice. In the end, I realized I'd dodged a bullet. Rachel wasn't the woman I thought she was. She wasn't interested in a partnership. She wanted access to the life I'd built, without any regard for honesty or fairness. It stung, but the relief I felt outweighed the heartbreak. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Over the next few weeks, I did my best to move on. I focused on my work, my friends, and the things I had neglected while being so wrapped up in trying to make Rachel happy. To my surprise, several friends and even some of my family members admitted they'd had their doubts about her, but hadn't wanted to interfere. They'd seen the entitlement, the little demands, the ways she'd try to stretch the boundaries of my generosity. I'd been blind to it, thinking she was just getting comfortable with me. But comfort had turned into control. Not long after, I heard from a mutual friend that Rachel had moved back to her parents' place and was telling anyone who'd listened that I'd strung her along, only to throw her away. She'd become almost obsessed with making me out to be the villain. But I knew the truth, and I had the receipts, literally and figuratively, to prove it. One afternoon, I got a message from a friend saying that Rachel had posted something on social media, calling me manipulative and stingy, claiming I had forced her to sign a prenup and then abandoned her with nothing. A part of me wanted to respond, to defend myself, but I knew it wouldn't be worth the energy. I'd seen her true colors, and I had made the decision to move on. As time passed, my life slowly went back to normal. I focused on building my company, reconnecting with friends, and eventually I started dating again. This time, I looked for someone who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could give them. The experience with Rachel had taught me a lot about entitlement, manipulation, and boundaries. I knew now how important it was to be with someone who could stand on their own 2 feet, who respected what I'd worked for, and who saw a future built on partnership, not just on my bank account. Looking back, calling off the engagement was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it was also one of the best decisions I'd ever made. I'd protected my life's work, sure, but more importantly, I'd protected myself. I walked away from Rachel with my integrity intact, and I knew that was something no one could ever take from me. In the end, Rachel was just a painful lesson, and for that, I could be grateful.